Here we are again, America. Deer Hunter DVM coming back at you here, September the 3rd. Sitting here overlooking a double crop. There's one right there. But we're looking at a double crop bean field tonight. A couple of dozen babies out there in front of a camera. Now's the time of year here in the Midwest where most of our seasons don't open until October 1st. That everybody starts talking about the shift in velvet peel and stuff like that, and Jason and I are going to get together and do a podcast for the White Knuckle Productions podcast. That we're going to sit down and talk about shift theory, and there's some kind of thumb rules that I'll use to try and beat the shift, or at least stay ahead of it. And long range observation here is, of course, one of them, and I'm starting to see it. In most states, velvet is starting to peel. It is now peel velvet time, and there's one way out there. So let's talk real quick about what drives that. So deer in their brain have this little bitty gland called the pineal gland, right? And the pineal gland is sensitive to day length. And when day length starts getting shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter and compounds on itself, the pineal gland kicks into gear, and a buck's testosterone starts to rise and gets him ready for the rut. And one of the first things that happens to his body physiologically is, the mineralization of antlers occur, and eventually the velvet loses its blood supply, and the antlers, stop ossifying, and they're all hardened up, and then velvet peels. That testosterone continues to rise, though, through the month of September and October here. And so when breeding season starts, these guys are juiced, man. They're going to put on body mass. That testosterone fuels them up, gets them a big old thick swollen neck. Muscles get thickened up. Fat gets deposited. They get big. And we've got a buck that we're chasing, who I believe is I think he's a 5 this year, or maybe a 6. We call the Big Hurt. And the Big Hurt is no stranger to testosterone blow up. I got a trail camera photo of him on Halloween last year as a 4, and I'm not kidding you, that deer looked like he weighed 350 pounds. Now, he didn't, but he was so swollen with testosterone that, man, he was just a huge, huge specimen. So when the shift occurs, a lot of these testosterone-fueled bucks will kind of move out of their summer ranges and into their historical fall ranges. Now, not all bucks shift, at least from my observation and what science tells us. It's about one out of every 3 doesn't shift. The other 2 out of 3 do shift. And I think there's a lot of factors that play into that. Readily available cover, readily available food and water sources, and I feel like probably most importantly, readily available does to stick it to. So, in anticipation of the shift, you need to kind of, it's just like in baseball. They put a shift on in the field in baseball, and the hitter has to try and beat the shift. We as whitetailers try and have to stay, or at least I do, try and stay ahead of that shift. And the very first thing I do is change up how I'm observing. I'm going to find the greenest, latest planted soybeans that I can to see if it's still holding any summer draw power. And I'm going to take a lot of my trail cameras and shift them from those historical summer food sources like soybeans and alfalfa on field edges, and I'm going to put them in those transition zones in between bedding and feeding. I'm definitely going to key in on historical scrapes, those great big community hub scrapes. And I've got I spent all last weekend um, moving trail cameras. It was a job moving those trail cameras, a lot of those off food sources, and into those scrape areas, and they'll start scraping like crazy before long. So that's one way I stay ahead of the shift. I don't know um, really here in Illinois any other good way of doing it, and it's worked out for me pretty well. I get a lot of good bucks on trail camera over mock scrapes, and on this very farm right now, I put I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cameras that I've moved over to those historical scrapes here in the last week to 10 days. I'm getting some good data on a couple of bucks on this farm, none of which were target bucks when I started the season, or summer I should say, but they're definitely on the radar screen for the coming fall. One of which is a great big 10-pointer we call Mr. Clean. I think he's a 5. And the other of which is we call the valve stem. He's got a little drop tine that looks like a valve stem on one side of his horn, on the left side. And both of those deer I think will, score pretty close to Boone. And there's a couple of other good deer here, but we're definitely currently not seeing the same summer activity that we were seeing 3-4 weeks ago here on this place. They're shifted out. I think one of the big things that people get frustrated with is they see all these bucks on during the summer, and they about September, things change and they get frustrated, and they're still there. Their food sources have just changed dramatically. When beans start to die and that total digestible nutrition or the nutrients in the plants kind of drops off, then they're going to start selecting for natural browse that's still nice and green. They're going to be in the timber hitting greenbrier and honeysuckle, and they're going to be hitting those acorns that are starting to fall right now, and they are starting to fall big time. So I feel like, hanging on observed summertime movement is absolutely a foolish choice ahead of that shift. So take that tip and take it to heart, because I've hung those stands over those bean fields and been beat on them multiple times. So anyway, tell me what you guys think about the shift. Give me your thoughts. Give me your input, and we'll use those as talking points on the pod here coming up in a couple days when we record it. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the flip side, guys.